My name is Claire Whitfield, and for 20 years, I thought I knew what loyalty meant. Emma and I met in college in Portland, Oregon, two broke freshmen sharing a dorm room, stocked with instant noodles and stolen dreams. She was the maid of honor at my wedding. I was the one who held her hair back after her first heartbreak. We built our lives side by side. Birthdays, breakups, promotions, funerals. She knew my secrets better than I did. So when my marriage to Daniel started collapsing, Emma was the one I called at 2 a.m. sobbing into the phone. She told me I deserved better. She told me Daniel didn't know what he had. She told me she'd always be there. The divorce took 11 brutal months. Daniel fought me on everything, the house, the savings, even the dog. The day the judge finally signed the papers, I walked out of that courthouse feeling like I'd been hollowed out with a spoon. I called Emma first. She didn't pick up. I told myself she was busy. A meeting, maybe. I texted her that night. It's over. I need you. Nothing. 3 days of silence. Then a week. I drove to her apartment, and her mailbox already had someone else's name taped over hers. She'd moved. It took me another 2 weeks of frantic searching, calling mutual friends, scrolling through social media at 3 a.m. like a woman possessed, before I found the post. Emma in a white dress standing under fairy lights, next to Daniel. Daniel, my ex-husband of 6 days. The caption said, "Some love stories just take longer to begin." I remember staring at that photo until my phone screen burned itself into my eyes. 20 years of friendship, and she hadn't even had the decency to tell me herself. She let me find out through a wedding announcement. People said I should be angry. I wasn't angry. I was something worse. I was erased. Like the last 2 decades of my life had been a lie I told myself. I didn't reach out. I didn't beg for an explanation. I simply closed that door, brick by brick, until I couldn't hear either of their names without my chest going tight. That was 4 years ago. I never imagined that door would open again, and that when it did, Emma would be the one standing outside it, broken, penniless, and begging me to let her back in. I built my life back from nothing, and I did it without either of them. The first year after the divorce was the hardest. I moved to a smaller apartment in Seattle, took on extra freelance graphic design work, and learned how to eat dinner alone without crying into my plate. Slowly, painfully, I found my footing. By the second year, I'd landed a steady contract with a marketing firm downtown. By the third, I'd been promoted to creative director. I didn't date. I didn't trust easily anymore. How could I? When the 2 people I trusted most had built a marriage on the wreckage of mine. But I had my work, a small circle of new friends who didn't know the old story, and a quiet, hard-won peace. Every so often, someone would mention Emma and Daniel, a cousin who still followed her on Instagram, an old coworker who ran into them at a restaurant. I trained myself not to react. "That's nice," I'd say, and change the subject. Inside, something old and bruised would flicker, then go still again. I heard bits and pieces over the years. Daniel started his own real estate investment firm. Emma quit her job to support him. Full-time, they bought a house in the suburbs with a pool. From the outside, it looked like the fairy tale she'd stolen from me. I told myself I didn't care. Most days, that was even true. Then, about 6 months ago, the rumors started shifting. Daniel's business was struggling. Something about bad investments. A partner who'd disappeared with company funds, lawsuits piling up. I heard he'd sold the house. Then I heard Emma had left him. Or maybe he'd left her. Depending on who was telling the story. I didn't ask questions. I didn't want to know. That chapter of my life was closed. And I'd promised myself I would never let either of them back into my thoughts, let alone my home. Which is exactly why on a rainy Tuesday evening in October, when I heard a knock at my apartment door and opened it to find Emma standing there, thinner than I remembered. Mascara streaked down her face, wearing a coat that looked 2 sizes too big. I froze completely. For a long moment, neither of us said a word. Then she whispered my name, voice breaking. "Claire, please, I have nowhere else to go." I didn't know in that moment whether I was about to slam the door or make the biggest mistake of my life by opening it wider. I stood there gripping the door, my heart pounding in a way I hadn't felt in years. Every instinct told me to shut it in her face. But 20 years of history doesn't just disappear, it sits in your bones. Whispering, "She was your sister once." Even when your mind screams, "She betrayed you." 5 minutes, I said finally, stepping aside. "That's all you get." Emma walked in like a ghost of the woman I used to know. She sat on the edge of my couch, hands trembling around a glass of water I hadn't even offered. I just handed it to her out of some old reflex I couldn't unlearn. "Daniel left me," she said quietly. 6 weeks ago. He took what was left of the money, there wasn't much, and he just vanished. I found out later there's another woman. Someone from his office, younger. I said nothing. Some cruel, quiet part of me almost laughed. "The house is gone," she continued. "Foreclosed." My car got repossessed last month. I've been staying at a motel, but I ran out of money 3 days ago. Her voice cracked. I know I have no right to ask you for anything. I know what I did to you. I think about it every single day, Claire. I've hated myself for 4 years. Then why are you here? I asked, my voice flat. Why me of all people? She looked up, eyes red-rimmed. Because you're the only person who ever really knew me. And because I need to tell you something about Daniel. Something I found before he left. Something in her tone shifted. The desperation's still there, but underneath it something sharper. Fear, maybe, or guilt of a different kind. What are you talking about? I asked. Emma reached into her worn tote, bag with shaking hands, and pulled out a folded stack of papers, creased and stained like she'd carried them for weeks, unsure what to do with them. I found these in his home office before the bank took the house, she said. Bank statements, emails. Claire, he wasn't just careless with money. He was hiding it, moving it. And I found your name on some of these documents. Old accounts. Investments from years ago, from your marriage. He never closed them out like he told the courts he did. My whole body went cold. He's still on your name in 3 accounts, Emma whispered. Accounts worth more than you'd believe. And I don't think he ever intended for you to find out. I sat frozen, staring at the papers in her outstretched hand. For a moment, I didn't move. Couldn't move. 4 years of carefully rebuilt peace cracked right down the middle. Let me see those, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Emma handed them over and I spread them across my coffee table. Bank statements from an investment account. I vaguely remembered opening during our marriage. One, Daniel had sworn, under oath, during the divorce proceedings no longer existed. My lawyer had asked him directly. He'd lied. Under penalty of perjury, he'd lied. The account wasn't small. Over the years, untouched and quietly compounding, it had grown into 6 figures. My name was still listed as co-owner. He'd simply never told me, never touched it, probably assuming I'd never find out or hoping I never would. There's more, Emma said quietly. 2 other accounts, smaller but still yours. He hid them during your divorce so he wouldn't have to split them. I only found out because I went through his office after he left, looking for anything I could use to survive. I looked up at her. And you're only telling me this now? After 4 years? Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't know until 3 weeks ago. I swear it, Claire. If I'd known back then, She stopped herself, shook her head. It doesn't matter what I would have done. I didn't do it. I chose him. I chose wrong, and I hurt you in a way I can never undo. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt a strange, cold clarity settling over me. The kind that comes right before you make a decision you can't take back. I need copies of everything, I said. Every statement, every email. And I need the name of your lawyer if you have one. I don't have a lawyer, Emma said. I can't afford one. I almost laughed at the irony of it, the woman who'd built her fairy tale life on my husband now, sitting in my living room with nothing, while the very papers that could destroy him sat between us. I have one, I said quietly. The same one who handled my divorce. She's going to want to see this immediately. I picked up my phone, and as I scrolled to her contact, a single thought settled into my chest. Sharp and clean as glass. Daniel was finally going to pay for everything he'd taken from me. But first I needed to know exactly how deep this went, and whether Emma was telling me the whole truth, or only the part that helped her. My lawyer, Patricia, moved fast once she saw the documents. Within 2 weeks, she'd confirmed everything. 3 hidden accounts, deliberate concealment during the divorce, sworn false statements to the court. This isn't just a civil matter anymore, Claire, she told me over the phone. This is fraud. We can reopen the settlement. And depending on what the DA wants to do, he could be looking at real consequences. I let her handle the legal machinery. I didn't call Daniel. I didn't need to hear his voice or his excuses. I let the paperwork speak for me. 3 months later, the court ordered the accounts unfrozen and transferred fully into my name, plus damages for the years of concealment. It wasn't just the 6 figures Emma had found. Once Patricia's team dug deeper, they uncovered even more money he'd funneled through shell investments to keep it from ever showing up in a courtroom. In the end, the total settlement was larger than anything I'd walked away with in the original divorce. Daniel, meanwhile, was already drowning. The fraud allegations reached his remaining business partners. What was left of his real estate firm collapsed under the weight of lawsuits. I heard secondhand that he'd moved back in with his parents in Ohio. I felt nothing when I heard it. Not triumph, not pity, just a quiet, settled peace, the kind you only get when the truth finally outweighs the lie. As for Emma, I didn't let her back into my life. Not fully. I helped her once because some old part of me still remembered the girl who'd held my hand through my father's funeral 22 years ago. I paid for 1 month at a transitional apartment and helped her find a job through a friend's small design studio. But I told her clearly the last time she stood in my doorway, I don't forgive you because you deserve it. I forgive you because carrying that anger was costing me more than it was costing you. But you and I are not what we used to be. We never will be again. She nodded, tears falling, and for the first time, she didn't argue. She understood. I closed the door that night not out of anger but out of certainty. I had my life back, rebuilt, reclaimed, and finally truly mine. The money mattered less than the truth. The truth mattered less than the peace. 20 years of friendship had ended in betrayal. But in the end, it wasn't revenge that saved me. It was simply refusing, ever again, to let anyone rewrite my story without my permission.